Good morning, good morning. Thank you so much for joining me. This is the podcast, The Endurance of Labor Laws. I'm your lovely host, Lesley Sullivan, and today is episode 161, and we are going to take a look at the Superfund sites located in the state of Missouri. So initially when I recorded this, it was over 40 minutes long, and I thought that is too long to be discussing something like Superfund sites. So I'm going to try and shorten it and just hit on the highlights and not go through every single little thing like I've done in the past, because I think that's kind of labor intensive, and I just think it's better to just say it like it is and move on. But before we dive into this puppy, let me give a big shout out to my listeners, because as usual, you guys are awesome. So a big shout out to Oklahoma, Virginia, California, Texas, New York, Pennsylvania, British Columbia, Illinois, Oregon, West Virginia, Indiana, Ohio, Massachusetts, Florida, Alabama, District of Columbia, Colorado, Minnesota, Washington, Georgia, New Jersey, Rhode Island, Kansas, North Carolina, Nevada, Maryland, Michigan, Iowa, New Brunswick, Louisiana, Connecticut, and Manitoba. In terms of countries, the United States, Canada, the Russian Federation, the United Kingdom, the Netherlands, Slovakia, South Africa, Japan, Denmark, and Uzbekistan. Now, a little bit of housekeeping here. So today, obviously, is November 8th. So if you are a citizen of the United States, do get out and vote. Exercise your right to be a part of society. Do not throw your right to vote away. You need to get out and vote. So please get out and vote. If you are a citizen of the United States, if you are not a citizen, these elections do not apply to you. Also, be ethical when you are voting, so do not vote multiple times. That's not a good thing to do. That is corruption. Other things that are celebrated on November 8th, it is actually National Cappuccino Day, and it is National Parents as Teachers Day. So, you know, some of the most interesting teachers I had in high school, not so much in college, but in high school, were teachers that were also parents, and you actually got to see how they parented their kids, and it was really neat to see that. There was one teacher I had, she was awesome. She had I think 6 or 7 or 8 kids. They had a large family, and she was just a really good educator. She was just really good with kids. I was really impressed with that, and I've never forgotten her, so she's a very nice lady. Now, something else I wanted to discuss in terms of housekeeping is do check out the YouTube channel for the Endurance of Labor Laws. So we are posting old shows on there as well as posting new ones on there. Sometimes my camera works in terms of me filming this, other times it is not. So today I am not filming via camera, so it's just going to be a recording with a really pretty picture. But do check out the YouTube channel, because we will be posting interviews and we will be posting just regular camera footage on there. So FYI, do subscribe. Please be aware of that. And if you have any questions or concerns or comments, please put them on there. It's great for people to reach out to us. We love to have you guys there. It is a great outlet for sure. So, but let's go ahead and start on this puppy here. And again, we are taking a look at the Superfund sites located in the state of Missouri. Missouri has not been doing a very good job in terms of environmental protection and things of that nature. And also the EPA has not been doing a very good job. So both are at fault, the federal government and the state of Missouri. Now mind you, the majority of these Superfund sites located in the state of Missouri were caused by companies in the private sector, but there were also issues with the federal government causing problems. And so, you know, if you're new to this podcast, whenever there's a Superfund site, technically it is a report to the EPA. And if the company that caused the problem, if it's from the private sector, they have an opportunity to pay for it and clean it up. If they cannot pay for it, if they cannot handle that financial burden, then they pass it along to the EPA, because sometimes cleanup is expensive, but they should still do it. So this is a problem where we have issues with companies causing a mess in the environment, and then they do not have the funds to clean it up, or at least they claim that, or maybe they go bankrupt and they literally do not have the funds to help clean it up. But then the property is passed along to the EPA, and the EPA has been letting these sit here for decades and causing problems in the environment. So both are at fault. There are a couple Superfund sites here in Missouri that were actually caused by the federal government. One was caused by the United States Department of Energy, and I think another one was caused by the U.S. military, the Army. So it's not just companies that cause these problems. Sometimes it is the federal government and or the research that they do, and they're not cleaning it up. But just FYI, there are 33 active and current Superfund sites located in the state of Missouri. And what I mean by current and active is that they have not been cleaned up, they are still toxic and hazardous, and not much is being done about them. We know that not a lot is being done about them because they are still on the list, and a lot of these are decades old. They go back like 3 or 4 decades at least. So that is where we get concerned about this, and if you're listening to this podcast and you're new to the podcast or YouTube channel, you're probably thinking, well, what in the world does this have to do with labor laws? It has everything to do with labor laws because toxic sites like this affect workers. Why? Because things like this affect everybody equally. It doesn't matter what political party you're in. It doesn't matter what industry you work in. Toxic, hazardous sites are a problem for everyone, and this affects your health. So I'm surprised that OSHA is not calling out the EPA on this, considering that this is very toxic, this is very bad, and we do need to get these cleaned up as soon as possible. Because not only is this affecting people, but it is affecting future generations, and it also is affecting livestock. It's killing livestock. So it's like, okay, if something is affecting livestock, then we know that it is affecting people. Also, in that same token, if something can affect a person, it can definitely affect our livestock. So think about all the things that we consume or the animals that we come in contact with. So we need to be careful about these things, and we need to address these things, and that's why we go over this in this podcast. So, but the first site that is current and active is called Armour Road. It is located in North Kansas City. The population there is 4,467 people. This site was used by a series of herbicide businesses, and this goes back to 1948. And just FYI, I'm not making an excuse for these people, not by any means, but I do need to make a statement here that there were a lot of things that were done in terms of chemical manufacturing that took place after World War II that people did not understand the severity of their actions, and we were learning about chemical warfare. We were learning a lot about herbicides during that time. So there were a lot of things that we were not aware of until after the fact. It's what I've mentioned in times past where I said, at one point everything was new. So for example, we have OSHA these days, and we have manufacturing policies, we have safety in the workplace and things of that nature. Well, way back in the day during the Industrial Revolution, there were a lot of on-the-job injuries and a lot of deaths because we were learning about, hey, what works, what doesn't work. How can we make the workplace safer, even if it is already an unsafe place to work, how can we help make it better and safer? I'll give an example. Like firefighters. The nature of their job is very dangerous, just to begin with. Even the training is difficult. That's why not everybody can be a firefighter. So, firefighters, their job is already dangerous in itself. Well, technically, you can't make the work environment safe because they're going into situations that are typically very bad, very extreme, dealing with fires, explosives, gasoline, you name it. Firefighters, they deal with a lot. But what can we do to make their job safe? Well, we can give them the best safety equipment possible. We can help them to have better flame retardants that do not cause cancer and things of that nature. But their actual job is, in fact, very dangerous. So we can't necessarily change the work environment because their work environment changes from call to call based on what gets called into 911, right? But we can definitely make their job as safe as possible. So that's what I mean here, that, there are things that are just naturally unsafe. So sometimes we can change the actual work. Sometimes we cannot. Other times we can only change how we handle that work, which is exactly what happened here with these herbicide businesses and things of that nature. So please be aware of that. But anyway, this site, it was detected that they had contamination from arsenic and other chemicals that are really bad. That was detected in 1989, but it was not put on the list until 1999. So obviously this was an issue long before 1989 and things were not getting addressed. So just FYI, be aware of that. The next one is BC Manufacturing Plant. It is current and active. It is located in Malden, Missouri. The population there is 4,277. Again, it's a manufacturing company. This particular one, BC Manufacturing Plant, they produced aluminum parts for doors and storm windows, but they dumped their wastewater directly into the soil. And so also the water was contaminated with chromium. Not good stuff, right? So it says here, cleanup at the site has included soil removal, and this ended in 2010, but this is still a problem. So they can say that this process ended in 2010, but it is still an issue. So if you were to walk onto this property, you could be exposed to these toxic materials. You could be exposed to chromium. So that is an issue there. So this one was put on the list in 1986 and is still a problem. The next one is Big River Mine Tailings St. Joe Minerals. This one is located, I'm going to mispronounce this, in Desloge, Missouri. The population there is 5,054 people. This one has contamination of lead, cadmium, and zinc, and it has affected water supplies as well. So that is a problem. It has also affected soil and airborne dust. This one has been on the list since 1992. It is still current and active. The next one is Campus Plaza Well. This one is located in Rogersville, Missouri. Let's see, the population is 3,897 people. The problem there is their groundwater is contaminated. I think this is trichloroethylene, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. And so this one has been on the list since 2012. It is still current and active. The next one is Conservation Chemical Company. It is located in Kansas City, Missouri. Let's see here. The population there is a little over 508,000 people. Their groundwater is contaminated from manufacturing chemicals. The site was initially handled by the Resource Conservation and Recovery Act, but was proposed to be added to the Superfund listing in 1988 as the Conservation Chemical Company was deemed by the EPA to be non-cooperative. So I don't mean to laugh, but it's just like, the company is not being cooperative, so then because they're not being cooperative, it has to be passed along to the EPA. However, this has been on the EPA's list since 1988. It is still present. It is still there. It is still a problem. So the EPA has not been handling it correctly either. So unfortunately, the groundwater in the soil is contaminated with cyanide and phenolic compounds, as well as VOCs, dioxins, and polychlorinated biphenyl. So just FYI, be aware of that. And this has been a problem since 1989. Well, actually before then, excuse me. This was an issue way before 1989. It wasn't until 1989 that it was put on this list, which again, we are reading from the National Priorities List. So these are the worst of the worst in terms of Superfund sites. The next one is Ellisville site. It is located in Ellisville, Missouri. The population there is 9,985 people. The soil is contaminated by dioxins and VOCs, and it's stemmed from chemical and industrial waste disposal. Airborne dust and groundwater contamination are also an issue. This one has been on the list since 1983. It is still current and active. The next one is Fulbright Landfill. FYI, landfills for some reason tend to be really bad. I don't know why, but they do for some reason tend to be a big issue. This one is located in Springfield, Missouri. Springfield, Missouri has a little over 169,000 people living in that area. The groundwater and waste there contain VOCs as well as organic compounds, heavy metals, and cyanides. Also, their waters, their river sediments are contaminated as well. That's not good. This one has been on the list since 1983. The next one is Lake City Army Ammunition Plant. It is located in Independence, Missouri. The population there is a little over 123,000 people. The groundwater, the soil, and the surface water are contaminated by VOCs, various explosives, perchlorates, and heavy metals, including lead, arsenic, and chromium. Not a good thing there. That one has been on the list since 1987. The next one is Lee Chemical. It is located in Liberty, Missouri. The population there is a little over 30,000 people. The groundwater, surface water, and soil are contaminated with TCE. This one has been on the list since 1986. The next one is Madison County Mines. It is located in Fredericktown. Let's see here, the population is 4,429 people. There's contamination of lead and other heavy metals. It has contaminated the groundwater, the soil, and the surface water from a former mining site. This one was added to the list in 2003, so fairly recent, but it's still active and an issue. The next one is Minker Stout Romaine Creek. It is located in Imperial, Missouri. The population there is 4,373 people. This one's kind of sad. A horse arena was sprayed with oil for dust control, but the soil was contaminated with dioxins. 7 horses died and more became ill. The arena was excavated in 1972, and the contaminated soil was used as fill for residential property, so they just moved the problem from the horse arena to places where people actually live. So that's really sad. It says here the sediments in Romaine Creek are also contaminated. This one was added to the list in 1983. The next one that is current and active is Missouri Electric Works. It is located in Cape Girardeau, or Girardeau, however you want to pronounce that, because it looks French. The population there is 39,540 people. The air, groundwater, and soil are contaminated by VOCs, PCBs, from a recycling transformer oil. Some waste oil was also used for dust suppression on local property, so I guess Missouri has an issue with dust, and for some reason they have a bad habit of using oil that is contaminated with dioxins, which poisons the ground, the air, the livestock, and it also is hazardous to people. So kind of a problem there. This one was added to the list in 1990. The next one is Newton County Mine Tailing Site. It is located in Granby, Missouri. The population there is 2,134 people. The groundwater and soil are contaminated by lead and cadmium from a mining operation. It is estimated that over 700 drinking water wells are contaminated, so basically they cannot drink the water. This one was added to the list in 2003. The next one that is current and active and still an issue is Newton County Wells. It is located in Joplin, Missouri. The population there doesn't tell me. Let's see here. It says there is TCE contamination of the groundwater, and drinking water wells are contaminated from a former ball bearing manufacturing plant. It was added to the list in 2000. The next one that is current and active is Oak Grove Village Well. It is located in Oak Grove Village. As of 2010, the population had 509 people living there. I'm guessing that it has grown since then. The problem there is they have contamination from TCE in their municipal water well from an unknown source. I don't believe that's unknown. I think they need to figure out where the source is coming from. That way they can stop the contamination, because if they don't know what's causing it, then it will continue to contaminate their water well. So kind of a big issue there. This one was added to the list in 2002. The next one that is current and active is, I think it's Oronogo Duneweg Mining Belt. It is located in Jasper County. The population there is 122,761 people living in that area. They have significant contamination of their groundwater, surface water, and soil by cadmium, lead, and zinc from mining, milling, and smelting of metal ores. It says at least 200 private drinking water wells are contaminated with lead and cadmium, so basically they cannot drink the water. And at least 2,300 residential yards are contaminated with lead, so basically people's yards, where they can be exposed to this. And at least 300 homes have been built on or near milling waste piles. Not very smart. So FYI, if you're thinking about buying a home or building a home, you need to take a look at the name of the land, the title, the lien, all of it, and see who has owned it, and see where exactly it's located, and see if this property that you're looking at has ever been on the EPA list, and if it is contaminated with anything. Because a very bad habit that the EPA has been doing is they have been taking property that was once deemed unlivable, and instead of completely cleaning up the environment, they basically redevelop it and sell it to people to build property on there, whether it's for businesses or for residential properties. And that's very bad because people are still being exposed to this dangerous stuff. So obviously that is not appropriate. Let me get a drink of water. Hold on just a second. Now you might be thinking, well, why is the EPA doing this? First of all, stupidity. Number 2, money. Number 3, greed. And number 4, what they typically do, the way that they are able to get away with this is they are able to set, okay, what is the maximum limit before something becomes lethal to the human race? Because if it doesn't reach the lethal limit, basically, then we can sell this property and make money off of it. But still people are being exposed to stuff even at a minuscule level. It is still a problem. So this is why I personally think that some people develop cancer is because they don't know what they're being exposed to, even at minimal levels. But see, here's the thing. You know, let me use smoking as an example. Let's say you have a smoker that smoked a pack a day for 40 years and they developed cancer. Okay, you know, we can justify that development of cancer because we know they smoked cigarettes every day for 40 years. And quite a few cigarettes, they smoked a pack a day. Now here's the thing. What about the person that maybe only smoked 1 or 2 cigarettes, or maybe they only smoked for a year then quit, but later on they also developed lung cancer? See, here's the thing. It doesn't matter necessarily what the level is of what you're exposed to, unless, of course, it is obviously lethal. But if ever you are exposed to something that is toxic, even at a minuscule, minimal level, it can still have a negative impact on your health, whether immediately or later on down the road, it can take your life because you're exposed to something that the human body should have never been exposed to. That's why this is an issue. So FYI, please be aware of that, because the EPA has definitely been making some mistakes. So let's hope and pray that they make things better and stop spending so much money, because the EPA is one of these federal agencies that spends a whole lot of money, does not do a lot of work, and they need to be held accountable for that. And I think Congress needs to hold them accountable to that, because Congress is basically just giving them all of our tax dollars. Well, not all of it, but quite a bit of it. Thank goodness that's not all of it. But, you know, Congress has the power of the purse, as they say. So needless to say, the EPA needs to cut its budget by at least 50 to 80%, because they are overspending, but yet they don't have a lot of employees. So that tells me they have a lot of professional paper pushers that are not actually doing their job, and they're not doing it well. So that's why we get concerned with things like that. But anyway, this particular Superfund site has been on the list since 1990. The next one that is current and active is Pools Prairie. It is located in Neosho, Missouri. The population there is 12,590 people. Their private drinking water wells are contaminated with VOCs, including TCE and carbon tetrachloride. Not good. This one is current and active and has been on the list since 1999. The next one that is current and active and still a problem is Quality Plating. It is located in Sikeston, Missouri. And the issue with this one is groundwater is contaminated by lead and hexavalent chromium from a former electroplating operation. This one has been on the list since 1986. The next one that is still a problem is Riverfront. It is located in Franklin, Missouri. The population there is 104,682 people. The groundwater, surface water, and soil are contaminated with PCE. This one has been on the list since 2000. The next one is Solid State Circuits, Inc. It is located in Republic, Missouri. The population there is 18,750 people. The groundwater is contaminated by VOCs, including TCE, methylene chloride, and chloroform. The contaminated soil has supposedly been cleaned up, but it is still a problem. Like, it's still on the list. So just because they clean it up, that doesn't mean that everything has been handled. So this one is still current and active and a problem. It has been on the list since 1986. The next one is St. Louis Airport, Hazelwood Interim Storage. I think it's Futura Coatings Company. So a lot going on with this one. It's located in St. Louis, Missouri. The soil is contaminated by uranium, thorium, and radium. And the groundwater has uranium contamination from uranium ore processing associated with the Manhattan Project and from transportation and dumping of processed residues. The site encompasses dozens of locations in this area, which is why we listed off all those names. And also the waste with the same origin, the waste was also trucked to the West Lake landfill. So obviously landfills tend to be a problem because they are dumping things there that they should not be dumping there. Hence, that's why some landfills become Superfund sites. It's a problem that was caused via stupidity. This one was added to the list in 1989. The next one is Southwest Jefferson County mining. It is still an issue and a problem. It is located in Jefferson County. The population there is 226,739 people. There is extensive lead contamination of soils at least 594 residential properties, basically where people live with their families, and in at least 39 private drinking water wells, so their water is contaminated. It's contaminated from a former mining, milling, and smelting operation. This one has been on the list since 2009, so it's fairly recent considering how outdated or how long the other ones have been on the list, but this one is still a problem. The next one is Sporland Valve Plate Number 1. It is located in Washington, Missouri. The population there is 14,916. It doesn't tell me what the issue is, but it was added to the list in 2019. The next one that is current and active and still a problem is Syntex Facility, Inc. It is located in Verona, Missouri. The population there is 826 people. The soil, surface water, and groundwater are contaminated by dioxins and VOCs. And the Spring River aquatic life is contaminated by dioxins from a chemical manufacturer. This one was added to the list in 1983. The next one that is current and active is Valley Park TCE. It is located in Valley Park, Missouri. And let's see here, the population is 6,885 people. The groundwater is contaminated by VOCs, including PCE and trichloroethane. The municipal and industrial water supplies are affected, so they can't drink, much less use the water supply, so that's a concern. This one has been on the list since 1986. The next one is Vienna Wells. It is located in Vienna, Missouri. The population there is 581 people. They have 3 drinking water wells that are contaminated by PCE, believed to come from the site of a former hat factory. This one was added to the list in 2010. The next one that is current and active and still a problem is Washington County Lead District. Furnace Creek is located in Caledonia, Missouri. Let's see here. The population as of 2010 was 130 people, but I bet it has grown since then. It does not tell me what the issue is, but it was added to the list in 2011. The next one that is current and active is Washington County Old Mines. It is located in Old Mines, Missouri. Let's see here. It says the problem is that the surface soil at 290 properties, or residential properties, so private property, and 124 private drinking water wells are contaminated with lead, and also they have elevated levels of arsenic and cadmium. And so the next 3 sites are exactly like this one. They have a site located in Old Mine, Potosi, and Richwoods. They all have that same issue. And these were added to the list in 2008. The next one is Weldon Spring, former Army Ordnance Works. It's located in St. Charles, Missouri. The population there is a little over 400,000 people. They have contamination from DNT, TNT, and lead. It has contaminated the soil, and it is also in their water, but not like their municipal wells. It's in the water that goes downstream to the lagoons, so issue there. That one has been on the list since 1990. The next one is Weldon Spring Plant Pits, and this one was caused by the United States Department of Energy and the U.S. Army. It is also located in St. Charles. They have problems with wastewater containing sulfonate derivatives that have contaminated the water and the groundwater. They also have residues from uranium ores, thorium ore, TNT, and DNT, so a lot of issues there. This one has been on the list since 1987. The next one that is current and active is West Lake Landfill. Again, landfills tend to be really bad. This one is located in St. Louis, Missouri. The soils are mixed with uranium ore processing residues that were used as daily cover in the landfilling operation. I don't know why they're dumping this stuff in landfills. Not only is it bad to put all that stuff there, but also they are exposing the employees that work for the city They are exposing them to a lot of bad stuff. But this one has been on the list since 1990. There are not any that are being proposed to being added to the list. Let me get another drink of water because my throat is dry. Doing a lot of reading here out loud. So needless to say, I am a little dehydrated. But the next ones that we're going to cover are ones that have been deleted, meaning they have been cleaned up and good to go. They are no longer a problem. The first one is Annapolis lead mine. It was located in Annapolis, Missouri. That one had contamination from lead, arsenic, and zinc. It was cleaned up and good to go as of September 2020. The next one that is cleaned up and good to go, it's either Kern or Kim Pest Laboratories. It was located in Cape Girardeau or Girardeau, however you want to pronounce that because it looks French. They had contamination from a pesticide, not good, but they cleaned it up and it's good to go as of 2001. The next one that is cleaned up and good to go is North U Drive Well contamination. It was located in Springfield, Missouri. They had contamination from VOCs, also known as volatile organic compounds. There were some things that affected the public water source. That's really bad as well. But this one was cleaned up and good to go as of 1994. The next one that is cleaned up and good to go is Shenandoah Stables. It was located in Moscow Mills, Missouri. This one was sad. It was where a horse arena was sprayed yet again with a dioxin-laced oil in 1971 for dust control. Needless to say, horses died, people were exposed to it, it was bad, but this one was cleaned up and good to go as of 2001. The next one that is cleaned up and good to go is Times Beach Site. It was located in Times Beach, Missouri. This one, again, Missouri had problems with dust control, and so they sprayed an oil that was very much manufactured Agent Orange to lower cost, and so it contaminated a lot of stuff. However, this has been cleaned up and good to go, but needless to say, Missouri, please stop using bad products for dust control. If you need dust control, I think people should just wear a mask, or they could, you could just spray water on the ground. That's not toxic to anyone. So please use some common sense with this. The next and last one that has been cleaned up and good to go is the Wheeling Disposal Service Company landfill. It was located in Amazonia. The issue with that one was hazardous waste were dumped in a landfill. Why am I not surprised? In the early 1980s, and it included pesticides, cyanide, and asbestos. Not good stuff, right? And who would think to dump that stuff like that? Makes no sense to me because, we're going to go into some podcast episodes later where we talk about the different types of waste and how they are handled, because how things are handled affects people's lives and also their work environment. But anyway, this one was cleaned up and good to go as of 2000. So needless to say, the state of Missouri, the EPA, and the federal government need to get together and clean these others up. And they need to address how they are handling their landfills. Because the thing that, one of the things that really disappoints me with this, and I'll close with this, is whenever, we do need waste control and we do need landfills, but the worst thing that we can possibly do is create a Superfund site. Basically create something that is so toxic, so horrible, so hazardous that now it's off limits to the entire human race. Well, why not avoid that? Only dump appropriate things in landfills because it's typically operated by the city. So, I know, for example, that, let's say, for example, you need to throw away furniture. And, no one wants to buy it. Well, let's say you want to put it, in your trash can. Well, you can't do that, technically, especially for larger pieces of furniture. If you have furniture and you want to throw it away, you have to haul it. Typically, you have to haul it to the city dump. They weigh your vehicle, with the furniture in it, and then they have you drive off the scale. They throw the furniture into some kind of, I guess, a receptacle kind of machine that crushes furniture. And then on the way out, they weigh your car and then they charge you for the weight of the furniture that is now being demolished at the city dump. That is the appropriate way to throw things away. What is not appropriate is to just allow any and every kind of toxic, hazardous chemical to be thrown into a city dump where lots of people, go there to throw stuff away, whether it's to recycle or maybe it's just the city employees. I mean, because they don't deserve to be exposed to this toxic, hazardous stuff. So you would think that the EPA and OSHA would be on top of this, but they're not. So, needless to say, that is an issue. And I do think that the private sector should help out the public sector here because we have many companies in the United States that know how to handle toxic, hazardous waste and how to properly dispose of things. So, needless to say, it shouldn't be the private sector against the public sector and vice versa. We need to come together as a community, as a nation, to handle these things because, again, in regards to Superfund sites, in what we are discussing, we are only looking at the worst of the worst, which is from the national priorities list, which there's typically about 1,200 to 1,400 of them on that list. And it's only growing, really. It's not really going down like it's supposed to. But outside of that list, we have about 40,000 Superfund sites that still need to be cleaned up. Even though they are not toxic and hazardous, per se, we still need to clean them up. And here's the thing. What we have noticed over time when looking at these Superfund sites, a lot of these sites, they are identified as being toxic and hazardous, but then there is a tremendous time delay, sometimes by many or several years, that the site gets proposed to being added to the national priorities list. But then again, there's another time lapse, sometimes of a few years to many years, to where it actually gets put on the list. So sometimes these sites, they were toxic and hazardous at least 2 or 3 decades ago, but for some stupid reason, it takes a long time for the federal government to identify that something is toxic and hazardous and actually put it on the list and then to actually get it cleaned up. I don't understand, how the left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing. Like where is the due diligence here? Because if you know that something is bad and it needs to be cleaned up, I'm stammering here or stuttering here because my mind is just trying to get a grasp on this. What I want to say is just get it done. Just get it done. Like there's no excuse to have these Superfund sites, these toxic, hazardous waste sites, wherever they're located. It is not right for them to just sit there and not be handled. Or to say, we've cleaned it up, but we really didn't. We just moved the soil to someone's private property. And then said, it's safe for you to live here when it's not. Most people, I'm not a parent, but, let me say this. A lot of people have kids. Does the EPA and OSHA not know that, hey, if you expose a child, especially in their infancy, to really toxic, bizarre stuff, that affects their development, possibly their brain and their organs? Like, it's bad enough to expose adults, but it's really bad to expose children to this and or the unborn. Let's say, for example, there's a pregnant woman, that is living on property that she was told was safe. Both her and her husband were told that, hey, it's good land, it's safe land, it's passed inspection, whatever the case may be. But then, if you go by the EPA standard, she and her baby could be exposed to toxic, hazardous chemicals or waste or soil or groundwater or surface water. And it could very much affect that child in the womb, especially when it is developing. It just doesn't make sense to me, this stuff that's going on. Because, if this kind of stuff isn't acceptable to me, then by nature and by natural laws of cause and effect, if it's not okay for me, then it's not okay for somebody else. Like, if I don't think it's appropriate for me to be exposed to stuff like this, I don't think it's appropriate for anybody to be exposed to this stuff. I don't care if they're elderly, if they're young, if they're middle-aged, if they're pregnant, if they're a newborn, if they're an infant, if they're in 12th grade, 6th grade, whatever the case may be. If something is toxic and hazardous to me, then that means it is toxic and hazardous to everybody. That's the problem here. So one thing that needs to be addressed is that just because the EPA says, this land is free and clear, you can definitely build on it, It doesn't matter whether it is an office building or residential homes. Used to the EPA had, I would say, a good reputation, a good title to it. Because usually when you say, oh, I study the EPA or I work for the EPA or things of that nature, people tend to have a very positive opinion of that. Oh, you work for the EPA or you're researching this, whatever the case may be. Well, now that we're actually diving into this, we're seeing time and time again where the EPA has dropped the ball and is not really helping the environment get back to what it is or what it is supposed to be. But yet they're claiming they need more money to basically not do their job. That's a big problem because stuff like that doesn't happen in the private sector. See, because here's the thing, in the private sector, when you're paid to do a job, you're paid to do your job and do it well. And if there's a problem, then we address it. And if the problem still happens and it's because you're not doing your job or you're not doing your job well, that means you're going to have a job loss. Why? Because you deserve it. Unfortunately, with these federal agencies, no one calls them out on stuff. No one holds them accountable. They just have a blank check to our tax dollars, to just basically be professional paper pushers. And that's not right. So I hope and pray that Congress calls out the EPA, on this. Let me get another drink of water. I pray that Congress calls out the EPA on this, because this is very much endangering people's lives. The longer we let these Superfund sites sit there and not address them. Because if we're not even going to address it, then how can we correct it? How can we fix it? How can we make things better? I mean, these federal agencies, they love our money. But what are they doing to actually help? See, the EPA is very similar to a social welfare program in that they make all these promises, but they don't get the job done. An example of this is Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, and also the VA hospital. Look at how many promises the federal government makes, but yet it doesn't keep its promises. I mean, I just have to wonder, at what point how do I describe this? Basically, at what point do people say, hey, this is an issue that we cannot look away from anymore? And at what point does Congress say, hey, EPA, you're not getting any more money until you tell us what exactly you're doing with it and where are the results of your work? I think we need to pump the brake on federal spending because it is a tremendous issue. Why? Because it is a tremendous problem. I'm all for the government cleaning stuff up and all that good stuff. And yes, they need our tax dollars, but the proof is in the pudding. If they are going to get all these tax dollars from you and I, from our wages, then just by natural law, we should be able to see the effects of this. But if we are not seeing the effects of it, then that poses a bigger issue. It means there's something going on that should not be going on, which means typically fraud, waste, misappropriation of funds is typically what that means. I hope and pray that's not the problem, but to me, it looks like it. So I think that we can definitely do a better job at handling our tax dollars and holding people accountable for what they say they're going to do. See, because here's the thing, whenever someone works for the government, they work for the people. So they should be held accountable. And they should be held to a high standard, especially when it comes to professionalism, ethics, morals, and values. They should be held, in fact, to a very high standard of professionalism. Because technically, these people that get appointed into these federal agencies and that are hired into these jobs, supposedly they are supposed to be the cream of the crop. They are supposed to be the best of the best. So if we have the cream of the crop and the best of the best, how come we're not seeing good results with this? What I think is going on is that there's a buddy-buddy system. I'll scratch your back if you scratch mine. I will appoint you to this position if you will appoint me to this other position later on down the road. It's tick for tack. How is this any different than what lobbyists do? I'm not completely against lobbyists, but I think sometimes lobbyists, they interfere way too much with our rules, laws, and our legislation. And you know what? This country does not belong to lobbyists. It belongs to the people of the United States. Lobbyists are part of our country, but they do not rule this country. We don't have a dictatorship. We don't have a monarchy, and there's a reason why, that we have steered away from all of that. And, there's a reason why our founding fathers wanted us to have a democracy. It's so that we could have freedom, and so that we could hold our leaders and anyone that is in a government position, whether they are elected or appointed, that we have the ability and we should hold them accountable. That's why this stuff is so important, because this directly impacts our workers' rights and also our safety, in the workplace. That's why I'm so surprised that OSHA is not calling out the EPA on this stuff. And why are they not calling out people that do inspections and say, oh yeah, this is livable, when it's really not? I find that bizarre. I mean, if I had kids, I wouldn't want them to be exposed to lead. Are you kidding me? I wouldn't want them exposed to, what is that, thorium and uranium ore? You gotta be kidding me. Like, that stuff is still a problem? Obviously, someone's dropped the ball, but hopefully they will pick up that ball and they will do what's right, do their job, and do it well. I truly do wish them well in everything that they do when they are working for the EPA and with the EPA. Because obviously the EPA needs a lot of help, and I guess so does OSHA at this point. But I will go ahead and end this podcast. But as usual, until next time, I pray that you're happy, healthy, and whole, that you have a wonderful day and a wonderful week. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.